Now, let's talk about float then. Float area. Let's use the name area since we're going to delve more into engineering applications. Essentially, I'm creating a box called area, and it can store a float. Let's say I can put areas equals to 15.4, and in here automatically I will have 15.4 with no problem. But let's say do not use this, do not do this. You see what I've done here? I've made an integer and I've given it a float value, floating point. What happens is that yes, it will create a variable called x. It will be an integer data type, but it will not store 15.4. Int is only designed to store whole numbers. It will only store 15. Remember that. Now let's move on to the next data type. Okay, now double is the same as float. It's the same as float. The only difference that I've said just now is the maximum value and the minimum value is of a larger range compared to float. That is all there is to it. Now next, a trickier one is character. Let's say character character name. Create a box called name, and then it's a character data type. I will assign name as equals to B. Now what you have to do here is that you can't just put name equals to B. In C programming, you have to put these two. Now it's equals to B. It's preset within all compilers of C language. The main way to assign a character is by this method. Remember, it can only store one character, only one. It can't store a full name such as Gabriel, which is my name essentially. You can't store this whole thing in here. And to do that, I'll talk more about this later on. Now, since we've covered data, let's go ahead and try to write our first program. Hash include stdio.h. Now, if I've mentioned earlier, the first line of every C programming code should be this: hash include stdio.h. Now the second following line should be int main. Now do not confuse with this. Main is not a variable. Main is not a variable. Main is a function. Let's say int x, and x is equals to 5. Then character y is equals to a. Now let's analyze this program. Wait, return 0. Let's analyze this program. First line include stdio.h. Second line int main. We're creating a function called main, which has to be present in every C programming program code. We open the curly brace to show that everything within the two curly braces belongs to int main. Okay, the first line, what we're doing is that we're creating a variable called x. Second line, we're putting 5 inside it. Now third line, we're creating a variable called y, and we're putting a inside it. Now look closely. Int x is how you declare it. Now in C programming, you have to add in a semicolon behind every line. Right now, just remember that you have to add it behind every line. There are certain times in some functions that you don't have to use it. Those are the syntax, but I'll touch more on that later. The next one, x equals to 5. I'm assigning 5 into x, 5 into x. And behind it, I'm still putting a semicolon. Third one, character y, semicolon. It's the same thing as the first line, but what I'm doing here is that I'm creating a variable called y, which is a character. This means I'm assigning the value of the character a to y, character a to y. The last line of every int main function should be returned 0. Then you close the braces. There you have it, your first program that does nothing but assign values. I'll see you in the next video.